Hi.
Hello again.
We're in the Pure Worship book. We've been looking at 5 promises, they say, that the modern day organization fulfills of promises made in Ezekiel, in the book of Ezekiel. So I'm going to show you some pictures. We dealt with 2 last time.
What page is it?
Oh, this is on page 105. So this is the pictures of the last 3 promises. You see the first one has a man out in field service, and the second one has a group of people around a table with Bibles open.
What are the captions there?
The caption of the first one is sacrifices of praise offered. And when you look at the comparison in the Ezekiel one, they have steps up to the temple and the sacrifice place.
So worship in the Old Testament becomes worship in a place with rituals, right?
Yeah.
Now it is.
Now it's evangelism.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The second one is faithful men to take the lead. So they're applying that to their eldership.
Their elders, interestingly, here around a table with Bibles open and some food. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Not the usual setting.
Yeah, so I don't know. I know they've disbanded the book study, so
yeah,
who knows what this is. But
so we're going to only read 2 paragraphs on the 2 promises then, right?
That's right. So promise number 3.
I'm just going to get the big screen on because I don't have a personal copy of the books. I know if you see me looking elsewhere, I'm not distracted. Okay, here we go. Promise 3, page 106. The resuming of gift offerings at Jehovah's altar. Back in the 1st century CE, Christians were taught that they were to offer to God not literal animal sacrifices, but far more valuable gifts, the words that they spoke in praising Jehovah and preaching to others about him. And then they cite Hebrews 13:15, which we'll talk about in a minute. During the centuries of exile, and they must mean by that exiling Babylon the Great after the 1st century, during the centuries of exile, there was no organized arrangement to make such offerings. At the close of the exile, however, God's people were already making such sacrifices of praise. They were busy in the preaching work and happily praising God at their meetings. From 1919 on, the faithful and discreet slave put greater emphasis on the preaching work and organized it more thoroughly. Jehovah's altar was thus overflowing with the sacrifices of an ever-growing army of praisers of his holy name.
Then promise 4 is the sifting out of bad shepherds. Christ freed God's people from the unscrupulous, self-serving, false shepherds of Christendom. In Christ's flock, shepherds who acted like those false shepherds were removed from their position. Jesus, as the fine shepherd, makes sure that his sheep were cared for. In 1919, he appointed his faithful and discreet slave. That small group of loyal anointed Christians took the lead in providing spiritual food, so God's people were well cared for. In time, elders were trained to assist in caring for the flock of God. The inspired description recorded at Ezekiel 34, verses 15 and 16, has often been used to remind Christian shepherds of the standards set by Jehovah God and Jesus Christ.
I don't know, when we first read this morning, I just felt a sick feeling as I contemplated one fabrication after another. You could say the whole 2 paragraphs is one fiction after another.
It's a rewriting of their own history. It idealizes what just did not happen and makes it sound like this is the process in which it happened.
So to put it within the context of the whole book, you're talking about restoring pure worship in the 20th century. But then you realize the equivalence of, well, pure worship in the days of Ezekiel looked like temple worship with a certain ritual attached to it and no impurities. And then pure worship in the days of the apostles becomes something else, you say anyway,
Yeah.
And it certainly is for you something else, namely it's evangelism. But you've made the first fabrication is that that's what it meant in the first century. That the far more valuable gifts in the first century were the words that they spoke in praising Jehovah and preaching to others. First of all Christians didn't preach to others in those days.
Yeah. And
Evangelists did.
And not all Christians had stopped doing sacrifices at the temple.
No, they hadn't. They were still going. If you read your Acts, specifically chapters 20 through 22, when Paul is back there for the last time. So no, one had not replaced the other. So evangelism, preaching, was not replacing what the worship forms of the Old Testament. They were both exist. But the point is, you weren't doing it. Paul and the apostles and a few others of co-workers were doing the preaching. You were not. But to insert Jehovah's name in here, they were busy speaking and praising the name of Jehovah, as if that is the new way to worship God.
Yeah.
Worship has not changed. Worship means gathering together to offer praise to. But the word Jehovah is just not there. It's not there even in the latter part of the Old Testament. That is after the exile.
Yeah, they're referencing a New Testament text, Hebrews 13:15. But I would suggest you go and read all of Hebrews 13 and see which name you see as prominent in that.
Yeah, just for information's sake, in case you don't get to do that, this is what it says. They cite it, but don't quote it. Here it is. Through him, then, that is Christ, if you look in the context, through him, then, let us continually offer up a sacrifice of praise to God, that is the fruit of lips that acknowledge his name. Well, if Hebrews had done that in the first century, they would have been, that is if they had done it the way you think they did it, they would have been either arrested or disfellowshipped for using the name of Jehovah in public. But Jews did not go house to house. Not even the apostles went house to house. So
but you have to remember that this sentence is theirs. It's not what you're going to find when you read through the Hebrews 13.
No.
That they're telling the people you have to be using God's name.
No. The Tetragrammaton does not occur once in the Hebrew text. Or I should say the Hebrews text, the Greek text of Hebrews.
Yeah.
So those are fictions number 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then you get to the end of paragraph 3 where you have this. Finally, from 1919 onward, the faithful and discreet slave put greater emphasis on the preaching work and organized it more thoroughly. Now, what's false about that? Well, first of all, the faithful and discreet slave was Charles Taze Russell. There wasn't some group doing this.
Yeah. I mean, in the next paragraph, they say they were appointed in 1919. But that's not true. They believed that Russell was the FDS.
They finish off that paragraph with this claim. Jehovah's altar was thus overflowing with the sacrifices of an ever-growing army of praises of his holy name. Well, read the publications of that period. The name is not central.
That is not the emphasis. Yeah. And actually, what were they preaching about? What were they selling?
Selling is right.
Yeah. They were selling books, Rutherford's books, and Russell still.
Yes,
they were selling.
both at the same time.
And they were promoting dates. Is that praising God? Does it praise Jehovah that you're putting everybody anxious about 1925 is coming?
Yeah, think of the 4 books that they put out during this period. The Finished Mystery, and we've already talked about that abundantly, that is just full of false predictions and dates. Then they put out the Millions book, which is rather a large booklet, around 100 pages. The Millions book comes out in 20. That becomes their campaign for 5 years.
Give the full title.
Millions now living will never die. And obviously right in the title is a false prophecy.
Yeah.
Because all those people are now dead. The millions that would never die are dead.
And they pointed to a date.
25. And then the next book comes out, The Harp of God, the next year. Still pushing 1925, but with the additional fact that the last days started in 1799, another false date. Then they put out The Way to Paradise in 1924. This is actually signed not by Rutherford, but by Van Amberg, who was prominent in the organization. But it's directed mostly at kids, but it's still pushing the agenda of 1925. Expect this to happen when 1925 comes.
Yeah.
So obviously in the title there you have the key. What's supposed to happen around 1925? Paradise. The way to paradise.
The ancient worthies coming back. So I would recommend you read those 4 books. If you can get a hold of those 4 books, even just reading one will probably do it. Get you out of the organization. And then you will get a true picture of that frame of time
Yeah.
in history, in the Watchtower's history.
So that becomes, by the time you get to Promise 4 and you read this sentence, Jesus as the fine shepherd made sure that his sheep were cared for. Now you put the blame on Jesus for this mess that you were making between 1917 and 1925.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he was not the shepherd. It was men that were guiding you. And that makes a lie of the other thing about God's people. Christ freed God's people from unscrupulous, self-serving false shepherds of Christendom.
Oh, yeah, that made me mad.
That's just plain slander.
It is slander. I have read, and David has read, books that are contemporaries of that period of time.
Dozens of teachers and probably hundreds of books by now.
And they're nourishing books, and they don't slander. They don't slander each other. They don't talk about Rutherford. They don't talk about Russell. They just talk about the Bible, and they praise and are devoted to Christianity, to Christ.
But of course here they're not just talking about the unscrupulous, self-serving false shepherds of Christendom. They're also talking about the elder arrangement. They're saying that they got rid of they purged the organization. Christ purged the organization of those who were not living up to the biblical standards in the organization. Yeah. Which of course then you realize, wait a minute, those are the people who were loyal to Russell.
To the one that you said was the FDS. And we're still saying was the FDS. You got rid of those people, and the elder arrangement, the election of elders to each congregation that was allowed to be.
Yeah.
You got rid of all that.
And then you have the nerve to say, after you say this, Jesus, the fine shepherd, made sure that his sheep were cared for. Well, obviously he didn't with those 4 books.
Yeah.
In 1919, he appointed his faithful and discreet slave. A falsehood.
Yeah.
Russell was the faithful and discreet slave, and they were still insisting upon that.
Mm-hmm.
That small group of loyal anointed Christians took the lead in providing spiritual food. Is that what you call those 4 books, which you no longer reprint and discourage witnesses from reading? Yeah. So God's people were well cared for. A lie. Yeah. They were given one false prophecy after another, and that was their food. And that was what they were supposed to preach. Mm-hmm. In their way of worshiping was to now preach Rutherford's falsehoods.
Yeah, and they don't tell you about the previous elders. They just move to, in time, elders were trained. And then use this Ezekiel 34, 15, and 16 as your proof text for this.
Yeah.
Which is amazing when you read the text.
Yeah, here's the text that they cite, but again don't quote. This is about how God would cleanse his organization. Well, in the text it's not about organization, it's about a work he's going to do in Israel, with Israel. This is what it says. This is 34, 15, and 16. I myself will be the shepherd of my sheep. I myself will make them lie down, declares the Lord God. That's Yahweh Elohim. I will seek the lost, and I will bring back the strayed, and I will bind up the injured, and I will strengthen the weak, and the fat and the strong I will destroy. I will feed them in justice. God takes all the credit here for the cleansing of his people.
And who's the shepherd? He is.
He is.
He is the shepherd.
Not the fine under shepherd, who they capitalize here. That's Jesus. Fine shepherd FS. So in a way they're applying texts that in the original are about Jehovah to Jesus without even apparently being aware of it. So no, that's mishandling the scripture. It was not elders who were to cleanse the flock and purify it, make pure worshippers out of false worshippers. It was Jehovah himself who would do it. And that we believe he's going to do with Israel. But obviously he's not done that with you, and there's no promise attached to you that he ever will.
Yeah, and that's the other question is, why are we talking about the organization at all in a book that's supposed to be about Ezekiel?
Indeed.
Okay.
What are our links?
2 links. A recent video on Corinthians. So, whom does Paul consider Christian or saints? And the second one is called Way of Holiness. Has David Splain read the Harp of God? Because he gave this little sermon praising the harp of God.
Yeah, as if it was some great work of God. Obviously, he hasn't read it or taken seriously what the message was.
It was one of the first books that I was reading that really disturbed me. That I couldn't understand how they could be saying such things in the organization. And now he's saying it's good stuff.
Good stuff. Fine food. So this is not an analysis of the Splain video. That speaks for itself, and you can go watch it. But it is an analysis of the harp of God. So let's just see what that book was saying. The stuff that David Splain never splained in his little speech about it.
Right.
So the other one too is about how does Paul define Christians? Well, they are those who publicly worship the Lord Jesus Christ. Very simple. Based on Corinthians chapter 1.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.